Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Artist Live with Renaldo Hudson in conversation with Indigo Wright. My name is Lee Fagan, Senior Director of Programming and Engagement here at the Logan Center at the University of Chicago. This program is organized in conjunction with the exhibition Truth and Beauty in the Hard Places, currently on view at Café Logan at the Logan Center. The exhibition represents the culmination of year-long residencies by creatives Tara Betts and Renaldo Hudson, inaugural poet and artist for the people, practitioners and residents at the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, and the Posen Center for Human Rights Lab at the University of Chicago. To quote Tara Betts about the show, hopefully these works encourage you to explore the possibilities of truth, hope, and beauty, even in those places and moments where we think none of those concepts seem possible. For those of you who haven't seen the exhibition, we encourage you to stop by. It will be up until April 1st, and we will be hosting a closing event on that evening in person with Renaldo and Tara in conversation with Alice Kim and Tracy Matthews. I'd like to extend gratitude to our co-sponsors of this afternoon's event and the exhibition, the Human Rights Lab, the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, and the Riva and David Logan Center for the Arts. I'd now like to pass it on to my colleague, Emily, to introduce the artists.
Peace and blessings, everyone. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Artist Live. Artist Live is a series of intimate dialogues which engage a diverse range of artists at different points in their careers, and they are examining their artistic practice and trajectory. The conversations explore a variety of topics as they reveal individual artist stories. And I started Artist Live several years ago when I came to University of Chicago because I was particularly interested as an artist myself and in listening to a wide variety of artist talks. I was particularly interested in the question of this trajectory of an artist's life and how do we become the artists that we are and what brings us to the work that we do. And so I'm super excited about this conversation in particular. Our next Artist Live will be on March 2nd at 5 p.m., where Tara Betts will be in conversation with Eve Ewing, and a registration link will be dropped in the chat. We hope that you will continue to stay engaged with the Logan Center, the Posen Center, and the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture to learn about upcoming programs. For the Center for Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, you can join the listserv or subscribe to their newsletter. For the Logan Center and the Posen Center, please visit our websites for more information about how to stay in touch. I would like to note that closed captioning will be available during the event, and ASL interpretation will be included in the recording once it's posted. I wanted to take a moment to read a quote from Thurgood Marshall that says, "In recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute." And I was thinking about that today as Thurgood Marshall being the first African-American US Supreme Court member, and we have a new nomination today. I was thinking deeply about this idea of our humanity and creating spaces that allow us to fully realize and acknowledge our humanity. And I think that is what is particularly important about this exhibition and the questions that it examines. I'd like to introduce you to the artists. Renaldo Hudson identifies as an artistic expressionist committed to ending mass incarceration. While on death row, Renaldo learned to express himself with oil and acrylic paints to escape the horrors of death row. Now that he is free, he makes art to expose the inhumanity of death by incarceration, facing people with life sentences, also known as the other death penalty. Renaldo is an engaging, committed, passionate person. It's been an honor to meet him, and I'm so excited that he's joining us this afternoon. One of the special things about Artist Live is that when we decide to have an Artist Live, we select an artist and then we ask that artist to determine who they'd like to be in conversation with. And Renaldo selected to be in conversation with Indigo Wright, who is a junior at the University of Chicago studying critical race and ethnic studies and comparative human development. Outside of academics, they are the Special Projects Fellow with the Human Rights Lab and work with a variety of community organizations such as the Prison and Neighborhood Arts Education Project, as well as on-campus organizing spaces. Madi intends to pursue law school following undergraduate school, and to continue organizing and teach radical politics both inside and outside prisons. They are originally from South Los Angeles. Madi hopes to impact communities both in Chicago and LA. It is my honor to introduce to you Renaldo Hudson and Indigo Wright for Artist Live.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm very, very excited to be here, specifically in space with Renaldo. I think it's one of my favorite pastimes, speaking to Renaldo and being in conversation with so many people about art and about art as resistance. I can talk a little bit about my relation to Renaldo. I had met him almost 2 years ago now. It was a random Friday at 1 p.m. Alice had asked me to come to lunch and meet Renaldo, and I had showed up on his porch and we had talked about art on his lawn for about 15 minutes before Alice got there with art supplies. And I remember that day specifically coming back from that lunch and being the most excited I had ever been about a work or school thing ever. And I came home to tell my roommates, and I was just so ecstatic and filled with joy. And ever since then, I think I have had such joy in any space with Renaldo and anytime I talk to Renaldo. And it's been so incredible to get to create his virtual gallery and physical galleries and just learn about him through his art. I think it's been such an incredible and really a great opportunity for me to learn so much through his art and through him. So I'm so excited to get to be in conversation with you today, Renaldo, and with everyone else. So my first question for you, I think, goes back to us meeting on your lawn that one day of the house that was your house at the time. Because when I met you, we were standing there and that was your home at the time. And that's what you had told me, this is your new home. You had just been recently released. In our conversations, we talk about what home means to us so much and what it means to have different homes throughout our lives. I think you especially can speak to this. So can you talk about a little bit where you're from, whatever that means to you, and where you call home?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Indigo. But I need to say this really, really quickly is I also have a reflection of when I first saw you. And it is so funny because I thought you were so colorful and so joyful to watch. And I was like, look at this young, beautiful person. And so it just made me so happy, right, that I will be able to collaborate with you. And so I want to make sure that I share that I love the fact that by me being an elder and you being a young person, that we were able to build a bridge of communication that is respectful and loving. And so I want to make sure that I say that to the world, that I adore and honor your commitment and the fact that you kept me on task. And so I just want to say that really quickly. But when I think of home, I've just now, after so many years, begin to feel at home because of so many years of incarceration. And so after spending 37 years, I was given a bed in a room over there where you met me at Precious Blood Hospitality House. And it was small, but it was really welcoming. And one of the funny things really quickly is that what made it feel home to me was I had not heard a car driving down the street. And I was listening to things that people take for granted, which is just hearing the tires against the pavement made me smile. Because I was like, oh my Lord, I am not in prison anymore. Because to hear a car in prison, it almost means you're being shipped somewhere else. And so it is so funny when people like think about that. But so I have not been home until now. So home to me is the place where I can lay my head and feel secure and comfortable. And I'll be honest, one of the most comfortable places for me that I call home is when I have a paintbrush in my hand expressing myself through art.
Thank you so much. And yes, I do remember that moment. And I think at the time I had really big orange hair. And that was the first thing he had pointed out was I had orange hair and eyebrows. So I think that is a funny thing that you recall. But I absolutely agree that I think homes change. And for you, you've had so many different homes throughout your life. And to know that the tires moving brings you joy and things like that. I think when we met, you talked about how excited you were to ride a bike and small things that I had taken for granted, or the learning to use a cell phone. and things like that I hadn't even thought twice about. So just small things like that, what it means to be free, what it means to be home, I think are so many things I've learned from knowing you. And you talk about how art making has been a home for you, both inside and outside. So, and I've heard so many stories from you, and almost all of them center art. And I think learning about your art has given me an incredibly in-depth lens of who you are. And I think that speaks to how you really live within your art. So can you talk a little bit about what art making means to you?
Yeah, it's really a venue that allows me to record, hard things, but also the depth of pain. Because too often we live with pain and we can't release it. And so I'm able to release the trauma and the horror of a very really heart piercing experience. And so I recognize that my beauty, right, what I see as beauty, which is the release of it, and the fact that it can possibly awaken in someone a desire to be, I want to change that. Like, I don't want this to continually be other people's living nightmare. And equally, I get to fulfill a commitment that I made to peers, is that I would tell our story. And it's hard sometimes for people to hear our story because it's not always pretty. In many instances, it's really, hard to look at, but it's a reality for so many people that continue to be incarcerated. And so I'm grateful that I get to tell our story in an uncompromising way. And the Logan Center, which I love, allowed us to be able to display it. And that is a really powerful thing. Yeah.
You had kind of already answered my follow-up, but I think you can speak a little more on it because I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about it. And I'd love to hear everyone else listen to it. But can you speak a little bit on how you use your art as a tool, and if you would like your art to be viewed as a tool for healing, for liberation? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you an example. Like, one of the paintings that is probably the most dear to me right now, in light of this specific exhibit, is Death by Incarceration. And the reason that painting is so important to me is I walked past my friend's cell and he was hanging. And I remember the last words that he shared with me was, "Renaldo, they're coming for me. They're after me. I'm out of here." And I was going on a visit. And so I actually attempted to get him some assistance, but it simply wasn't available. And so when I came back from my visit, I walked by his cell, and to my horror, he was hanging. And so it's like constantly people don't know those stories. People don't know. Imagine being on death row, waiting to be executed, but to become so frightened and distressed that you hang yourself, And so I want people to know that my painting is a tribute to the men and women who are dying by incarceration, the oppression of incarceration that has such a painful effect and a horror that it presses you so much that rather than wait for the executioner, you execute yourself. And I have numerous of friends who are no longer with us because they just couldn't take it. And I think their stories I owe it to myself. I can't say what anyone else's responsibility is because it's not for me to do that. But I owe it to myself, and I wouldn't be the man of integrity that I say I am if I compromise and somehow tried to make something that is dark beautiful. But I think they're intertwined in a way that is hard, but it's a necessary hardness. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly how you came up with the name Truth and Beauty in the Hard Places. I think they're really something you do is not mask anything, but you show things in a very artistic way, whether it's beauty or whether it's pain. And I think you do that in an incredible way. I have looked at, I think, all your paintings in this gallery. I have been working on Renaldo's gallery, his virtual gallery, for about almost 2 years now. And each painting, whether it's of people, whether it has words on it, whether it's art, invokes emotion and you can feel it. And it's a painting that I think is alive, all of them. So I think that's really a great way to say what your work is about. So I guess my next question is then also ties to this. And I think you spoke a little bit about it. But as someone's viewing your painting or sitting with your work, what do you hope they walk away with when they leave the exhibition or they leave or they are finished looking at your work?
I hope it, to be honest, I hope it burns a tattoo in their hearts, to be really, really honest, so that they can say, I will never forget. I will never forget that I saw beauty, you know, truth and beauty. And I want to be a part of the beauty, you know, that is locked away in hard places. That is my desire, you know, that people don't just say, oh, okay, that's okay. Oh, what is that? But simply say, oh, this moved me. I want people to be moved to action, to be really, really transparent. Like, and that action can be predicated around what they're able to do individually to begin to share the word, right? Like, I want everyone to take a picture and say, you know, if you can't invite your friends, you can at least share an image and your description. You know, I think that that is vitally important because the main thing to me is to spread the message, you know, that truth and beauty in hard places is a real thing.
Yes, and I think your work absolutely does that. I think your art is movement. And I think it's really important to have alive and moving work within liberation and specifically with art. So yeah, I absolutely love that answer from you. So now I'm gonna shift a little bit, both with my experience and your experience. So I'm thinking back on moments I've had in curating your virtual gallery where I've kind of learned bits and pieces of your life. And I think you have so much various different work that tells a lot of different stories about different moments in your life. I've looked at different dates when art was created. I've seen different mediums of work. I've seen different size canvases. I've seen completely different types of material that you've worked on, from walls to stairs to canvases. So in thinking about that and recovering all these paintings kind of across the country and in different facilities and listening to the stories you told me about how each painting is born and why it came about and where it lives now, I'm always wondering about how your process changes as you do. So I was hoping you can talk a little bit about how your art as a process is different now, free in the free world in comparison to when you were inside.
Yeah. Well, inside, a lot of my art was censored because you can't really paint controversial things, right? You have to cloak them. And so there are messages in a lot of my early work that people just, I wait for people to see it and then I'll talk to them about it, but I never reveal it. And so it's almost like learning the history, going back and learning the history of slavery, where messages had to be coded, right? And so, especially during the month of Black History Month, we think about, you know, people that we really want to celebrate. I think about the fact that I'm now a part of history, and I want to make sure that the record that reflect that is something that is important and not, you know, my ego, but the message that someone can pick up and say, I can appreciate that and I respect where you're coming from. Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah. So as I've said before, so much of our relationship has been built because of and with your art. The stories you have told me before incarceration and during incarceration, and now with the moments we share after incarceration, are so heavily ingrained with your art and your art process. And with that, I think you write a lot of stories and you have a lot of words, not just like in art, but like as we have conversations with your art. So I was curious, and a few others in our team were also curious, because this was a question we thought of together. What would you want the title of your story to be thus far? If you were to imagine your work as a chapter book, what would the cover of that book look like? And would you be the one to paint it?
I wouldn't want to be the one to paint it. I would trust that someone, I would trust, to be really honest, I would trust it to just happen, and not prompt by me on any level. You know, just an example, I have people that I've met since I've been home that have, well, one brother that's still incarcerated, Santiago, and I say his name out of honor, who painted a self-portrait of me on the last day of my incarceration, you know, and I think he really captured my fears, my anxieties, and my happiness all in one portrait. I have another portrait, and I'm sharing this to make the point that is a portrait of me that I met a lady walking down the street, and we started talking, and she went home and told her husband about our encounter. And so he painted a portrait of me that I was like, wow. And so I think that when your life is the truth, right, then the beauty of it will come forth, and you don't have to prompt people. You just have to be the best you can be. So I don't want to prompt or attempt to direct what that would be. I would simply say, in words, I would love it to be said, he was the truth.
When you say your life is the truth, what do you mean by that?
I mean that I live by the things I said out of my mouth, that if I said that I was going to be kind, I was kind. If I said I was going to be direct, and I was direct. If I said I was going to do something, I did it. And I think that there's not enough focus anymore on people being real, you know, and I want to live the rest of my life, however much time I have, being the truth. Yeah. So I think being the truth is the way me and you relate, right? Like, just to be really honest, like, I could have asked for 1,000 different people to interview me, but I was like, there's no way in the world that I would want anyone to interview me other than you. And that was the truth that came from my heart. And so I wanted it to be, you know, put up front, because I met your heart, I met your beauty, and I met your skill and commitment to the work. And so to me, that is the truth that I'm talking about. Like, be the message that you bring. Yeah.
I really do think that is something that you live by. And I think it's something you've also taught me, because I think even in our conversations, they're very much genuine conversations. And I think you bring a very genuine energy, not only to your art, but to your work as an activist in our like organizational spaces. I feel we've spent so many conversations, like summer discussions in group circles, talking about really, really tricky topics to talk about, but we've made spaces where people feel comfortable with each other to speak about these things and to do movement work, where it is really genuine and where people can speak their truth like you do. And I think that's something that you teach a lot of people. So it's something I've got to come away with, learning from you as well. And then my next question is, what has helped you to grow in your artistry? And do you have a vision of what is next?
Could you repeat the last part of the question?
Yes. So the first part is, what has helped you grow in your artistry? So what or who, and then do you have a vision of what is next?
I do. My friendships inspire me. You know, I always tell people, to Alice's embarrassment, Alice Kim specifically, like how much I love her, because when I was on death row, she was a major person fighting for our liberation, you know, and to be out and to be not only friends with her and colleagues with her, but to be able to collaborate, you know, on a project like this and feel 1,000% supported is amazing. And I think I'm actually living my dream. You know, people talk about their dreams. I'm actually living my dream. My nightmare ended when I walked out of the Department of Corrections, and my dream started to like kick in. And I'm like, I'm almost like an 8-year-old with his birthday every day, because every day to me is exciting. And so I do have a project that I'm already starting, that I think is vitally important, but I'm not telling y'all yet. Because I think it's important to, entice people. Like, you give up too much, then people be like, we don't have to go. We already told you. You already told us what you're going to do next. But it is amazingly, it's an amazing, Alice knows, so if y'all could squeeze Alice, she might tell y'all, but I'm going to hold true to my right to remain silent in love.
Well, I'm excited because I don't even know yet. But I'm very excited.
I would just put this part out there. It will be love and hope represented in a tremendously awesome medium. Yeah.
I'm very excited. I imagine everyone else is as well. So you were saying that you're living your dream and that in your work, you have bits and pieces of your everyday life that kind of inspires it. And I think that reminds me of your kind of natural work, a lot of the work you do with nature, the bright ones. There were a few paintings Renaldo had done that have a lot of sun and a lot of water, and I put them on coasters for his Christmas present. So when this gallery was finished, we could celebrate and have coasters to put it on. And they're very bright, very energetic, very kind of joyous paintings. So what little bits and pieces of your life, how do you think like the little moments that you have every day impact your work?
Oh, it's so impactful. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned it. It could take me kind of back to your previous question as well. I love the sunsets. I love the fact that I tell people that whatever your nightmare was last night, the sun, comes up, right? What's that? Tomorrow, I'll love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. I love that. Like, I'm not ashamed of that. Like, that inspires me in a way that I'm like, man, what is tomorrow going to allow me to do? What is tomorrow going to allow me? Who can I possibly inspire, right? Who will inspire me, And I promise you, I keep going back to this, like you and Beth and all the youth, you guys really, really like, I'm inspired by y'all. Like, I'm like, man, I hope I can leave something where they know that they actually have encountered someone that really appreciates them, and that wants to lift them up and let them know that they're backed up. Like if you call me, right, it's no tricks, you get what you see, right? And so, but I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by, when some young person come beside me and show me something tech-wise, how to do something. Like, I won't go into it earlier. I was gonna put them like, I don't know how to do it, right? I'm okay with not knowing, right? And I'm okay with asking for help. And so I want to be an inspiration to not just the youth, but I just love the youth. I think that more of us that's a little gray, because I'm a little gray. I don't know if y'all can see it, right? I want to make sure you just encounter someone that just loved you purely without wanting anything from you, but wanted to make sure you had every opportunity, to be better. And I hope my art helps to do that. And so when you talk about my sunsets, it's because I'll give you a real glimpse into this. There's a biblical idea that said when hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when it comes, it's like a tree of life. And so I always think about, how can I be inspired to hold on? How can I maintain my sense of, stability when everything around me is unsettled? I want to be a settling presence anywhere and everywhere I am, because there's so much turmoil everywhere you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think better than anyone that that's really hard to do on a day-to-day basis, because there is so much difficulty on day-to-day life. But just knowing you and in the circles we work in, I think we do really find joy in the very small moments and the very small conversations. And I think that's also something I've learned from you, is to find joy in very little bits and very small pieces of my life. So how do you hold that beauty in the midst of difficulty? I know you talk about finding stability and being that stability for others. Where does it come from, and how do you kind of manifest that on a day-to-day basis?
it might be hard for people to follow this, but to me, it's really simple. The depth of my pain gives me the strength, you know, that I know how much I've come through. I know how horrible, those years were. And so I have deep roots, I have deep traumatic roots, right? And so I'm like, no man, I'm like, oh, I've been here before. Oh, like, you know, I've seen dark moments. Wait a minute, like that don't mean it don't shake me, but because my roots are so deep, I go back to them. I go back to when I was, you know, really no one even was really trying to talk about me or to me. And when I recognized that it was my responsibility to own that I made the decision that placed me in prison, people was like, whoa, what are you doing? Shut up, right? And I was like, no, I need to have roots and the ability to be able to stand up and say, you know what, I'm accountable and responsible, but I'm also someone that was abused. I'm also someone that was taken advantage of. I'm also someone that suffered from sexual abuses, the physical abuses, psychological abuses, academic neglect. And so all those things now inspire me because I can say, despite that, I was able to pull myself up, not by my bootstraps, but by the hand straps that people hand down to me and say, hey, man, hey, I'm here and I'm willing to help you. So no one can really do this alone, in my humble opinion. We always have to have someone. And I'm inspired by the fact that I'm surrounded now, by people that want to see me succeed. And I equally want to make sure that I make them proud by taking full advantage of every opportunity to say to the world, we're so much better than the act that we committed. And I don't want to preach second chances. I'm a preacher of first chances. And this is my first chance to let the world see that there's a beautiful thing in the truth about Renaldo. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I want to also open it up for other people to talk and to ask questions. We also have a few paintings that we want to show people to kind of get a glimpse of what we were talking about in this conversation. I also want to open it up to Eric Blackman and to Monica Cosby if they would like to say any few words, but I'll turn it over right now to Lay to show the pictures we have of Renaldo's work.
Thanks, Indigo. I'll just share my screen. We have just a selection of images that you can see on view in the exhibition currently up. Hope this works. Can you all see that? Yeah, I see some nodding. Great. So I'll just take a beat with each. They're about 12. stop my sharing and turn it back over to Indigo and Renaldo.
Wow.
And then, so I'm done talking, but I'd like to ask Eric or Monica if you guys would also like to say anything. I know you guys are very close as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to first off say great to you, Renaldo. It's an honor to be here. To honor you, get a chance to meet you. A lot of people don't know Renaldo. I actually met him a few years ago, even though we were both incarcerated at the same time. I knew Renaldo long before I ever actually met him. I missed Death Row by the great chance of luck to not go to Death Row to meet him, but we would often hear about this great guy in Death Row. And then when the Death Row guys were let off of Death Row, we would hear about Renaldo, the person who had got a chance to go down to all of these smaller institutions while we had still was there in the big joints. I was kind of mad, like how they let the Death Row dude go down to a little institution and left us. But I think that went to the power of just how great of a person he was, despite what anybody might have thought or what we might think of Death Row people. Just how great of an impact he made, not just on us as other inmates or the stories that we would often hear about him, but just that he made the administration and the people who would often be in charge of punishment, he made them see a different way in him, and that made him see a different light in everybody. For him to be able to do the things he's done and to be able to be out here and be as great of a person he is, speaks volumes to all of us. And when I say us, I mean there's people who really resonate with Renaldo and his story, because oftentimes people try to separate us. We had a little incident like that before where we were both speaking on a little panel and somebody tried to say, hey, Eric, you're different from Renaldo, as a way like really to like divide us, and just the way he would always handle it the same way I would. And Andrew, you're great. Like, you're great. And I think your art, the person you are, the way you speak, and everything that you give us all definitely shows that. So thank you, sir. I definitely appreciate it.
And Monica, I think your hair as well.
I'm gonna cry you so much. I look to be like you, right? I learn from you on a consistent, every time we talk, just regular conversations, right? Not intentionally deep or nothing. Just, it's just how it goes, right? It's just how we go. I love all of your paintings. Earlier, you talked about, you know, the sunset. My favorite times of the day, always. The entire time I was locked up, I would go on whatever movement there happened to be, as close to sunrise or sunset as I could get, just because that was my favorite time of day. And I always looked forward to the day when I could see it, absent the razor wire, right? Absent the tower with the guy with the gun, you know. And so to see you painting that, right? The oceanscape, Alice, thank you so much for sending me the reminder email. Because I wanted to come and I just like had everything in the world going on. And then I got the email and I was like, yes. And I'm so glad. Thank you. Renaldo, thank you for just being the person that you are, right? Who you are, what you do, the way you do it, all of that. And just keep doing it. And thank you for always having my back too. Love you.
I love you back.
Thank you both. I see Eric, Albert Kirkman. I see your hand raised. Go ahead. Maybe if you could type your question into the chat for us, because we can't seem to hear you.
Okay. No, it's good.
Now it's good.
There you go.
It's good now?
Yep.
Okay. I had to fool around technology a little bit. it's this brother. I have a lot of personal love for this brother experience with him. You know, he always been inspirational and faith and hope and journey of one day of getting free. So to see his painting and see the elements of I can see being behind them bars and seeing the nature, I can feel the hope, a lot of hope with the painting. And I know that from him personally, to see this and to enjoy it, I know he's grateful as much as I am grateful having our freedom. And I just love to see it's everything that we talked about is coming to fruition. And I'm glad to see that you're finally getting the recognition that you deserve, brother. You know, you really do. And I'm happy to see that with much love. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is so moving, but I have to tell y'all, I told you, just remember that. Like we had 1,000 conversations.
Yes.
And the thing that I think is so wonderful for me is that not that I get to say, hey, look at me, right? Because I didn't do it inside and I don't do it out here. Yes. But I know that if we stay consistent, right? Yes. If we just, keep our eye on the prize, always remind people, and you know it, because you used to be in the chapel with me, you used to see me every day, right? And so people out here don't know, like, that just like I am now, I was inside the facility and I saw truth and beauty on both sides in both uniforms. I saw really horrible staff people, and then I saw some really loving people that was also staff that were kind of beacons of hope, if you will, right? People who might not want to hear that, but I'm never gonna not give people the due they got coming. Equally, I've seen people on our side, right? That I'll be like, oh, and I'll go in the other direction. And people used to laugh at me because they say, man, why you running? I was like, man, because you on some stupid, right? And I know you are, right? But it's through this work that we began to share our story. And so that's really what I'm the most excited about, is that I get to tell our story. And it's a continuum, never-ending story. This is just one episode, right? Like we got 200 more episodes to do, right? And so I definitely want to just say thank you to you and Monica and Eric, that I love y'all, right? And I appreciate y'all, but we have to tell the story of all those that are still waiting, not for their second chance, but for their first chance. And I want to keep emphasizing the importance of people understanding that the narrative is vitally important. And if people don't recognize that you're talking to people about a second chance when they never experienced their first chance, right? My art, it is my hope, will stir people to start thinking about, people's first chance, and giving people the tools and the wraparound services that they need to be successful out here. And so having access and exposure gives us the platform to speak to truth. Like now, this is about art, but my art is connected to my advocacy work, right? The work of being an advocate is connected to my art. And so it is vitally important that I remember to share that there are thousands of men and women still incarcerated across this nation who need their first chance at being the best them they can be. So I'm glad you're home, and we definitely need to hook up. You could buy dinner, because I heard how well you're doing. All right, so thank you.
Thank you so much for everyone getting to have these little conversations right now. They've been so nice. There is a question in the chat from Yazud. I think it's a few questions. They said you can answer which ones resonate with you. So I'll read all of them, and I think you can just speak freely. So they asked, I wonder about anyone outside any outside influences that touched your work, music, writing. I'm also a lover of sunsets, so I wonder I wonder if you have any specific memories attached to those moments. How do you interact with memory in your work?
Yeah, I definitely rely upon my memory. You know, people don't know that when I went to prison, I was a functionally illiterate. And so it was my memory that kept me and gave me the ability to navigate through stuff that I couldn't read the signs, right? Um, and so I do rely a lot on my memory, but I'm inspired by and encouraged by Tara, right? Her writings are insanely wonderful. Like she's one of the most gifted people that I've ever encountered as a writer. Um, I love the fact that I was honored that she did a writing on one of my pieces. You know, one of the paintings that was shown, which to me is a painting that I want to share with the world on every opportunity, which is The Forgotten Women of COVID. You know, and I share it because it's connected to, once again, my work as an advocate, right? To make sure that we give voice to the sisters that are ignored. You know, like it's so much attention paid to the male population and very little is paid to the female population or those in the female facilities, right? Um, and so I did a Zoom presentation with the Department of Correction on helping to train or help to educate, right, vaccination ambassadors. And we had 20 maybe windows from the webinar, and only one of those little windows were the sisters, right? And they weren't asking any questions. And so I honed in on them. And I wanted to know why they weren't talking. Like they need, like this was made to be informative, right? And the sister shared with me, hey, first of all, we've been ignored during the whole COVID thing, right? Because there's really special issues and things that don't necessarily be issues with the males that are issues with the female population. And COVID really showed a lot of the hurt and the dysfunction there. But the sister said to me, they won't let me speak. And so I made it my business to give them platform, right? Because I had access to platform and they couldn't mute me like they were able to mute them, right? Because I'm now free, right? And so I'm like, it is my responsibility to make sure they have platform, right? And a voice, that their voice is heard. And so when I was laying in the bunk one night, I'm saying my bunk, I'm free, my bed, right? See, that's the impact of incarceration, right? And it popped in my head, The Forgotten Women of COVID, and I jumped up. What people don't know is I can paint a picture in a setting. And so the Forgotten Women of COVID was inspired by me saying, I won't forget them. Like I will make sure every chance I get, I'm gonna tell people, hey, invest in trying to figure out how to help the sisters that are being ignored, you know? And so anyway, that is, when I saw that painting even pop back into my head, make sure you don't forget to remind people to not forget the women, the forgotten women of COVID. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I believe we have another question from Eric about what your most memorable piece of work is. And then after that, we're going to invite Tara to say a few words as well. So what is your most memorable piece of work?
Freedom costs. And what a lot of people don't know is that that painting, and I'm really stealing these words, I have to be honest, right? Because I'm in these academic settings, so I have to be mindful of taking credit for someone else's brilliance. But I remember Alice Kim sharing with me that, Renaldo, we can see the movement of today in that painting that you painted so many years ago. And I was like, wow, you know, but that painting was me trying to get out all that I was hearing as an incarcerated person, all the struggles that people were having with trying to get Mumia out, trying to, the Death Row 10, you know, the Renaldo Hudson Mercy Committee that people don't know that existed so many years ago, that I was trying to get people to come and support what I thought was my liberation moment back in the 90s, which it simply wasn't, right? But to answer that question directly, it clearly is freedom cost. And I tell people all the time, cars don't move without gas. these movements don't move without cash. And so that painting reminds me of that all the time, every time I see it.
Thank you so much. So I think Tara is in the room right now. So I'm going to ask Tara to come up and say a few words.
Hey, it's Indigo. Hey, Renaldo, how you doing?
Hello, you.
I'm just checking in because I'm really glad that we've gotten the opportunity to work together, and I got to experience your work and experience just hanging out with you. And I think that has probably been one of the best things about 2021 and beyond for me, is just getting to have these conversations with you and getting to know some of the people at UFC like Indigo and Yazoo, and spending more time with Tracy and hanging out with our dear friend Alice Kim. So it's been a really amazing experience. And I think the thing I would love for you to talk about is kind of what was that like to just collaborate with all these people in terms of not just getting the work out, but thinking of these details to kind of curate a show, because for me, it was my first show too. So I'm kind of curious what you thought about it.
Yeah. For me, actually, it was pretty just exciting, and everyone was so committed and on point. Like, I didn't really have any issues. I love even messing with, like, I was watching even Lee over at the Logan Center, how like she own it. Like, she don't even be playing like, and I'm a real like kind of silly person, and she be on the business. Let's get this did. And I love that character trait about her, because she did it. Like, I love when Alice and Tracy and all of, I tell all of y'all young ones, right, that they be doing so much. I don't know what all y'all doing. I be just trying to follow the trails of the emails and say thank you. And so practicing the art of thank you became really, really important to me, because I wasn't doing the work. I was just painting, and everybody else was just doing so much work. And I had no responsibility other than just like, hey, I'm here. So for me, like, it was just a really happy, non-stressful for me, non-stressful. I was like, okay, what do you need me to do? I'll show up, right? I enjoy the fact that every other Wednesday, I just show up at the Logan Center, like that's my building. At least I feel like it's gonna be my building until April 1st. Then I'll be like, okay, I guess it's over. Like, can y'all call me or something? I'm like, but it's just been really amazing for me. Like, I have to admit, like, I love everyone that did any work in this. Emily, thank you for the Facebook Live. Like, I love like how engaging people are, how interested people are in not just my work, but also thinking about the people that come in contact with it. It's amazing seeing how protective the professors are over the students, and all the stuff that people may never know, right? And the conversations and the efforts to ensure the mental as well as the physical safety of everyone. So there's so many components that don't get the air, and I'm not going to expose stuff because I'm smarter than that. But I'm so grateful to be a part of a team of people that not only featured me, they featured and thought about everyone in the process. So for me, it's just been exciting, and I am looking forward to what's next, to be honest. Yeah.
And I believe Tracy had a question for you as well.
I do. Hey, Renaldo. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for giving us this opportunity to meet you and to have all this great time with you and to do this work with you. And you kind of started answering the question that I was going to ask, having this be your first exhibition. And can you talk a little bit and share maybe some anecdotes from your interactions with folks in the gallery space and some of the reactions you've gotten in the comment book? You already mentioned you have your office hours on Wednesdays. And just, tell us what happens during your office hours.
Oh, it's really funny. Thank you for asking that question. Because I just took for granted that people know. I'll just show up and I'll just roll up on somebody. Hey, have you looked? Have you been and saw this artwork in that gallery? And people are like, huh? And I'm amazed at times people are like, what gallery? Like right here where you eating lunch. Come on. And I'll almost drag people over to the exhibit, right? Be like, look. And they'll be like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. I'm like, I'm the artist. Want to take a picture with me? And so, like, it'd be so funny to me, like, and I've done this to probably since I've been going over there, I've probably met 12 people, right? That I actually spent a moment with talking to. I really enjoyed, I'll be honest, a lot of the staff there, the Black staff, people of color, who I was really interested in how they're reacting and would react to the work. And it's amazing how people was like, oh man, now that you're giving me insight for the people that had questions, it's astonishing. In fact, I stopped at one of the desks the other day, and I was talking to one of the guards, because she specifically told me I'm Officer so-and-so, right? I said, okay, Officer so-and-so, have you been in the gallery? And the lady said, I have the pictures on my phone. I love them. And so I was like, go ahead on. I'm the artist. You want to take my picture? And I do that intentionally because I be like for so long, what people don't know is when you're incarcerated, they only take your mugshot. And so all our pictures is like us trying to be mad or trying to look hard, right? When I want to hug people, I'm like a Care Bear. I don't want to hurt nobody. I want to love, love. Like I'm in that headspace, right? But you can't really do that in when you're incarcerated. So I get to walk around and practice the art of love. I get to share with people like these paintings, even the hearts ones, were painted in love, and they're dedicated to the mission of love. Love makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. Yeah. So, but I continue to look forward to meeting people and plan to be there every chance I get and walk people through. I'll tell you this one thing really quickly, Tracy. It was one cup of people were sitting all around eating. And so I'm a little kind of like, just like this my joint. And so I was walking around and one of my friends, I was walking through the exhibit and people said, oh, I was like, no, you don't have to move, just stay there, right? You're okay. And so it just to me, just really, really important that people recognize that we're approachable, that we care to answer any question, no matter what they may think. I'm very, very open. I have nothing to hide because it's truth and beauty in hard places. So don't ask a question you ain't ready to receive an answer to. But don't ask me, because I'm telling you, I'm gonna tell you. And I love that experience and that opportunity. Yeah.
And then I think Alice has a question.
Hey, Renaldo, can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so I wanted to make sure people knew I met Renaldo in 1998. It was an incredibly different climate than it is now, a different political climate. It was the time when we still had a death penalty in Illinois, and Renaldo and others had an execution hanging over them. And it was a time when you could go to vigils outside of Stateville, and there would be townies who were there to celebrate execution. And miraculous that Renaldo is here today and that he's free. And it is so much because of who he is, that he had the courage to say to the world that I am not the worst thing that I've ever done, and I deserve freedom. And look, I am a human being, see my humanity. And that he did that in so many different ways, right? And he built a community of people who supported and came to love him and fought alongside him for his freedom. So I wanted to say that because I mean, Ronaldo finds beauty and joy in the hard places, right? And but it has been a long and it has been a hard journey. So I don't want to gloss over that, and I want to ask you to maybe close out by sharing what's changed. What do you think has changed now that you're out from that time, right? What's changed, and what are some of the things that have stayed the same? And I'd love to hear you talk about some of that so we can get a little bit sense of this long, hard journey that you've experienced.
Yeah, wow, that is a really heavy question, because I'm sad to say there has not been a lot that's changed. Clearly, Illinois no longer has a death penalty where they are actually executing people, but it still have sentences that are death by incarceration. And so we don't carry the shame of actually taking someone in a dark room and executing them, but we do continually wear the shame of not seeing the humanity in people. And it doesn't, I want to just add this part to it. Acknowledging the humanity of people that are incarcerated does not minimize the importance of acknowledging the hurt of victims of crimes. They don't contradict each other. They can actually collaborate and work together when the right leadership and sentiments are shared. I took full responsibility for my actions while sharing the importance of my humanity. When it wasn't popular to say I was guilty, I began to have that conversation in public forums. And so it's still unpopular, right? Because the courts is not forgiving, and there's no vial or avenues open for people to actually get a second chance, as they want to say. I say get the first chance, right? And so I'm happy. The thing that has really changed is the fact that I'm out, and I get to actually be a part of the conversation and help to possibly navigate the narrative more toward, the humanity of people. Once again, both people who are victimized as well as the victims. Oftentimes victims become victimizers. And so I've seen that up close and personal. And so too often in cases, the prosecution plays on the hurt of people and never let them really see that this is a broken person that did a broken thing that we're going to try to glue back together, while not shadowing or minimizing your hurt or your loss at the same time. Though that's something that still need to be did. I'm committed to being a part of those conversations to further move us down that road. But to me, in all honesty, it's beautiful that I'm home. I'm excited. I'm gonna take full advantage of it. But in all honesty, very little has actually changed. And I shared this with you, Alice. I went to my grade school, right, when I came home. And it looked like it looked when I left the world in the 80s. Can you imagine that? That like all these years later, this school looks like it was neglected back then, and it definitely continued to be. And that plays a role in what they talk about, the school line, from the school line to the prison. Yeah, and that saddens me. But I'm happy that I now can do something about what saddens me, which is to share as much as I can the hope that I have for a better tomorrow. I'm still hopeful, and I'm still excited, and I'm still inspired, because I know how much and how far we have come as a people. Individually, we're developing at a really fast pace, but socially and morally, I think we're way behind.
Thank you to Alice for your question, and thank you to Renaldo for responding. Before we close, I just wanted to say how grateful I am for you and the relationship we've built. This experience, being able to build your virtual gallery and be a part of building the physical gallery, has been really, I think, life-changing for me. I joke about it a lot, but before I met Renaldo, I was going to med school. And I had this very STEM track in medical classes that I did not enjoy, in biology and chemistry. And after I had met you, I had learned to practice a lot of like what brings me joy and spaces I want to be in with people who bring me joy. And that was not pre-med. So I dropped the major and I switched completely and I joined spaces that I really, really love because of it. And I think now I practice doing things that I really, really love all the time and being with people who make me happy and give me good energy. And I think every time I talk to you, I have good energy. I think I would have never expected from us the first day we met for you to be like family now, not even like family, I think family. You check on me like a parent does. So I just want to say I'm very grateful, not only for the opportunity to work with you and to think through and be in these organizational spaces with you, but also to have this friendship. And I have so much love for you. And with that, I will give it to Emily to close.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time this afternoon to be in the circle with us. I'd like to thank everyone from the team of the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture and the Posen Center for collaborating together with us. I think the university is a place where it often feels like we're operating in silos. And I'm super grateful for every opportunity to work collaboratively. Want to thank the work of Lee Fagan, who was so instrumental in the design and curation of this exhibition. But most importantly, would like to thank Indigo and Renaldo for your voices and your time and your energy. I'd like to encourage folks who may not have been in to see the exhibition, not only to go in and see the exhibition, but to bring a friend so that in these few weeks before we close, we have an opportunity to have lots of people see the work. I'd like to remind everyone that on March 2nd, we will have an Artist Live conversation with Tara Betts and Eve Ewing, and hope that you all who are here today will also join us on March 2nd for that conversation. I'd like to also, on behalf of the Logan Center, there was a comment from Bill Michael, our executive director, saying, Renaldo, we hope that you will continue to think of the Logan Center as a place that is one of your many homes after April 1st. We hope you'll continue to be part of our circle. And my work in community engagement, it is important to have partners and to have partners that we work with over time. So I'm going to close with a quote from James Baldwin. If one really wishes to know how justice is administered in a country, one does not question the policemen, the lawyers, the judges, or the protected members of the middle class. One goes to the unprotected, those precisely who need the law's protection most, and listens to their testimony. And I think that this exhibition, this conversation is a testimony to the words and stories of the unprotected. And I hope that we will all listen and continue to look for ways to bring light to those visions and those stories. Thanks everyone for coming.